In 1821, a boy named Louis Vuitton was born in a windswept Jura village, his hands destined to reshape the world. At 14, he defied a cruel fate, trekking 292 miles to Paris, dodging wolves and bandits to chase a dream. From a smoky workshop, he forged the Trianon trunk, a revolution that conquered empires. But behind the monogram's elegance lies a saga of betrayal, war, and hidden truths. Did his brother's envy nearly destroy the family? What secrets did Clemence weave into her canvas designs? From Paris's war-torn ashes to London's glittering strand, the Vuittons battled rivals and forged locks even Houdini couldn't crack. Discover trunks that hid spies' codes, scandals that rocked empires, and a merger that birthed a $124.8 billion titan. This is no mere brand. It's a dynasty of dreamers, rebels, and visionaries. Unravel the Louis Vuitton saga, where every stitch tells a story. Dive into the full epic now. Glory awaits. In 1821, the small village of Angers lay cradled in the wild embrace of the Jura Mountains in eastern France. Its stone cottages clung to the earth, defiant against the howling alpine winds that swept through the valleys. Thick pine forests stretched endlessly, their branches heavy with snow in winter and alive with birdsong in summer. The icy streams that carved through the rugged terrain glittered like veins of silver under the sun. On August 4th, in one such cottage, Louis Vuitton entered the world, the first child of Xavier and Coronne Vuitton. Xavier, a farmer with hands hardened by decades of toil, wrestled a living from the stubborn soil. His broad shoulders bore the weight of seasons, his face etched with lines from battling frost and drought. Coronne, a milliner of rare talent, wove straw and thread into hats that carried a whisper of elegance. Her fingers, nimble and precise, danced over her work, turning humble materials into objects of quiet beauty. The cottage they shared was modest, its walls darkened by hearth smoke, its air tinged with the scent of Coronne's fabrics. Louis, a child of his union, grew up straddling two worlds, his father's earthy pragmatism and his mother's delicate artistry. By day, he followed Xavier across the fields, his small boots sinking into the damp earth as he learned the land's rhythms. The plow's steady scrape and the lowing of cattle became the music of his early years. By night, he sat at Coronne's knee, watching her hands move like a magician's, conjuring hats from straw and dreams. The firelight cast shadows on the walls, and in its glow, Louis's imagination began to stir. He traced patterns in the dirt floor with a stick, mimicking his mother's designs with a child's clumsy grace. At 5, he picked up a scrap of wood from Xavier's pile, his tiny hands fumbling to shape it with a borrowed knife. The result was a crude block, but to Louis, it was a promise, a hint of what his hands might one day achieve. Coronne smiled, her eyes soft with pride, and placed the piece on the mantle beside her own creations. "Your hands will make wonders," she told him, her voice a melody that lingered in his young mind. The Jura Mountains, with their emerald slopes and rushing waters, became his playground and his teacher. He climbed their rocky faces, scraped his knees on their stones, and listened to the wind's tales of distant places. In the village, he watched travelers pass through, merchants with carts, peddlers with packs, each a glimpse of a world beyond Angers. Their stories of Paris, a city of light and splendor, sank deep into his soul, igniting a spark of longing. At 7, he carved his first proper box, a rough rectangle of pine sealed with sap-sticky fingers. Xavier laughed, clapping him on the shoulder, but Coronne saw something more, a flicker of destiny. She knelt beside him, adjusting his grip on the knife, teaching him to cut with purpose rather than force. Together they sanded the edges, her patience guiding his eager hands toward precision. The box, though simple, held a secret drawer Louis devised, a child's clever twist on utility. He gave it to his younger sister, Marie, who squealed with delight at its hidden compartment. The village carpenter, old Monsieur Dupont, took notice, gruffly praising the boy's knack for wood. Dupont lent him tools, a chisel, a plane, and showed him how to join planks without nails, using only skill. Louis spent hours in Dupont's shed, the air thick with sawdust, learning the grain of poplar and oak. By 8, he crafted a stool for the cottage, its legs wobbly but sturdy enough to hold Xavier's weight. The farmer grunted approval, and Louis felt the first stirrings of pride in his chest. But the Jura, for all its beauty, was a hard master. Its winters brutal and its summers fleeting. The family scraped by, their meals often just bread and broth, the fields yielding barely enough. Coron's hats brought extra coin, sold at market to women who coveted her craft. Louis joined her on these trips, carrying baskets over the winding pass to Dole, the nearest town. There he saw wealth for the first time, ladies in silk, men in tall hats, their lives a stark contrast to Anshé's simplicity. He lingered by the stalls, studying the trunks and cases that held their worldly goods. Some were leather, cracked and heavy, others wood, ornate but impractical. In his mind, he began to dream of something better, lighter, stronger, a vessel for journeys yet untraveled. At 9, he built a miniature cart from twigs and string, its wheels rolling smooth over the cottage floor. Coron laughed, calling him her little engineer, and Xavier ruffled his hair with a rare smile. But the idyll of childhood was fragile, a thread soon to snap under fate's cruel hand. In 1831, the first blow fell, swift and devastating. Coron, weakened by years of labor and the damp chill of the cottage, fell ill as winter tightened its grip. Her cough rattled through the night, a sound that haunted Louis's dreams. Xavier carried her to the hearth, piling blankets over her frail form, but warmth could not hold her. Louis, just 10, knelt by her side, his small hand clutching hers as her breathing grew shallow. She whispered to him, her voice faint, "Make something lasting, my boy, something the world will hold dear." As dawn broke over the frost-covered hills, she slipped away, her life extinguished like a candle in the wind. The cottage fell silent, its heart torn out, leaving only echoes of her laughter. Xavier buried her in the village's oldest oak, a tree she'd loved for its strength and shade. Her hats, once vibrant with her touch, hung on pegs like relics of a lost era. Louis sat by her grave, the thimble she'd used now tucked in his pocket, a piece of her he could keep. Grief carved a hollow in him, but it also sharpened his resolve, her words a compass for his future. Xavier, broken by loss, withdrew into himself, his fields untended, his voice muted. The boy who once trailed his father now wandered alone, seeking solace in the forest's embrace. He carved her initials, CV, into a slab of pine, a tribute hidden beneath his bed. For months he spoke little, his world dimmed, his hands idle without her guidance. But time, relentless, marched on, and with it came a new storm to test his spirit. 2 years later, in 1833, Xavier remarried, bringing Jean into their home like a shadow across the sun. Jean, a weaver from a neighboring village, was stern, her face sharp, and her eyes cold as the mountain streams. Her hands, skilled at the loom, were quick with discipline, her voice a lash that cut through the cottage. She entered with a trunk of her own, a battered thing of warped wood, its hinges rusted and weak. Louis stared at it, already imagining how he'd improve it, though he dared not say so. Jean saw Coron's memory as a rival, her hats a challenge to her own authority. She tossed them into the fire one bitter night, their straw curling into ash as Louis watched in horror. He lunged to save them, but Jean's grip on his arm was iron, her words sharp. "That's done now." The loss reignited his grief, a wound torn open, but it also lit a fire of defiance within him. Jeanne bore Xavier 2 more children, half-siblings who filled the cottage with cries. But Louis felt apart. She favored her own, doling out scraps to Louis and Pierre, his younger brother from Coron. Pierre, frail and timid, clung to Louis, their bond a lifeline in Jean's harsh domain. The cottage, once a haven, became a cage, its walls closing in with every passing day. Jean's rules were rigid, work from dawn, no idle hands, no dreams beyond the fields. Louis chafed under her reign, his spirit too wild for her leash, his mind racing with thoughts of escape. At 12, he stole moments in the woods, crafting small boxes from fallen branches, hiding them from her wrath. He traded one with a shepherd for a sliver of cheese, a secret triumph that fueled his hunger for more. By 13, Jean's patience with him frayed, her resentment boiling over in sharp words and sharper blows. One evening, he overheard her plotting with Xavier, her voice low and venomous. "He's too headstrong. Send him to the tanner in Poligny. Let him break there." The tanner, a brute known for his cruelty, loomed in Louis's mind like a nightmare made flesh. Xavier, weary and submissive, nodded, his will eroded by years of sorrow and toil. Louis, heart-pounding, knew he could not stay, could not let Jean's scheme claim him. Paris, a name that had danced in his dreams since childhood, rose like a beacon in the dark. He'd read of it in tattered books from the village school, its streets alive with art, its skies pierced by towers. It was a city where a boy with nothing could forge something grand, where ambition might find a home. That night he lay awake, tracing the thimble in his pocket, its metal warm against his skin. Escape was not a choice but a necessity, a path to honor his mother's faith in him. In the spring of 1835, before dawn painted the sky, Louis made his move. He slipped from his straw pallet, the cottage silence save for Jean's snores and Pierre's soft breathing. From the kitchen, he took a heel of bread, a knife dulled by years, and his mother's thimble, his only treasures. He slung them in a sack, its coarse weave rough against his shoulder, and stepped into the chill. The Jura Mountains loomed, their peaks shrouded in mist, gauntlet he must cross. At 14, he was slight but wiry, his body hardened by farm work and forest rambles. The journey to Paris stretched 292 miles, a distance that would daunt a grown man, let alone a boy. But Louis was no ordinary boy. His will was forged in loss, tempered by dreams and sharpened by defiance. He whispered goodbye to Pierre through the cracked window, vowing to return one day with glory. The road unfurled before him, a ribbon of dirt and danger winding through the wilderness. He walked as the sun rose, its light gilding the pines, his shadow stretching long behind him. The first day his legs ached, unused to such relentless steps. But he pressed on, fueled by purpose. In the forest near Lons-le-Saunier, he heard the snap of twigs, his pulse quickening with fear. A boar crashed through the underbrush, its tusk gleaming, and Louis froze, breath caught in his throat. He climbed a tree, its bark scraping his palms, and waited as the beast snorted below. Hours passed before it lumbered off, leaving him trembling but alive, his resolve unshaken. By night, he slept beneath an oak, its roots a cradle, the stars his only roof. He dreamed of Caronne, her voice urging him forward, her thimble a talisman against despair. In Poligny, a town he skirted to avoid the tanner, he traded a carved stick for a sip of milk. The farmer's wife, pitying his thin frame, warned him of bandits on the road ahead. He thanked her with a nod, his voice hoarse from disuse, and tightened his grip on the knife. Near Dijon, hunger gnawed at him, his bread long gone, his body weak from days of walking. A farmer offered shelter in a barn, but his son, a lout with a sneer, stole Louis's sack in the night. Louis woke to find it gone, save the thimble he'd kept in his pocket, a stroke of luck amid betrayal. He confronted the boy, fists clenched, but the farmer drove him off with a pitchfork's threat. Undeterred, he worked a day in the stables, earning a coin and a crust to carry him onward. In Troy, exhaustion claimed him, his body collapsing in a hayloft as fever burned through his veins. For 3 days, he drifted in delirium, visions of Angers and Paris warring in his mind. A seamstress, Madame Lefebvre, found him, her gray hair framing a face lined with kindness. She nursed him with broth and cool cloths, her hands as gentle as Caronne's had been. "You're a fighter," she said, her voice steady. As he opened his eyes to her care, she taught him to mend a tear in his shirt, her needle flashing, and gifted him one of her own. "Sow your dreams, boy," she told him as he left, her words an echo of his mother's charge. He pressed on, the road a blur of villages and rivers, each step a victory over doubt. By 1837, after 2 years of trials, Paris rose before him, its skyline a jagged promise. The Seine glittered under a smoky sky, its bridges alive with carts and voices. Notre Dame towered, its gargoyles leering down at the boy who defied the odds. Louis, 16, stood in its shadow, hunger clawing at his belly, hope blazing in his heart. The city was a labyrinth of noise and motion, its streets a tangle of cobblestones and chaos. Horse-drawn omnibuses clattered past, their drivers shouting, while factories belched smoke into the air. Louis wandered Montmartre, drawn by the scent of wood and leather from its workshops. Artisans bent over benches, their tools singing, and he lingered, watching their hands at work. He knocked at Monsieur Maréchal's door, a boxmaker's shop thick with glue and sawdust. Maréchal, scarred and gruff, sized him up, his one good eye narrowing at the boy's ragged state. "You got fire," he growled, tossing Louis a rag to clean the filth of the road. He offered a corner in the loft, a pallet among the shavings, and a chance to prove his worth. Louis seized it, his hands eager to learn, his mind soaking in every lesson. The workshop was a forge, shaping him as he shaped wood, poplar bending under his touch. Maréchal taught him to measure twice, cut once, to waste nothing, to chase perfection relentlessly. By day, he crafted boxes for Paris's elite, their silks and satins demanding care. By night, he sought Maître Dubois, a reclusive master who'd once served the royal court. Dubois, shrouded in scandal, lived in a garret, his hands still deft despite his years. He showed Louis to wax fabric with beeswax, a trick that made canvas tough as iron. Louis practiced in secret, coating scraps until they gleamed, his vision sharpening with each try. In 1840, a rival, Claude, sabotaged his work, loosening hinges on a box for a baroness. The box split open on delivery, silk spilling onto the street. The baroness's rage thunderous. Louis, humiliated, rebuilt it overnight, his fingers bleeding, his design surpassing the original. The baroness, won over, sang his praises. A Maréchal's stern nod was reward enough. Claude, envious, challenged him to a duel of craft, his ornate box flashy but frail. Louis, simple and strong, stood firm, and Maréchal sent Claude packing with a curse. Word spread. Louis Vuitton, the boy from nowhere, had a gift Paris could not ignore. By 1845, his name rippled through salons, his skill in packing gowns a marvel to actresses and nobles. He lived in a garret, its roof leaking, its walls icy, surviving on bread and thin tea. There, by candlelight, he sketched trunks, flat-topped, light, durable, ideas born of necessity. He met Clémence Émilie Pariot at a market, her dark eyes meeting his over a stall of thread. A seamstress, orphaned young, she'd fought her way through Paris's slums with a needle. Their bond grew under gaslights, her strength a mirror to his, her hands a partner to his craft. In 1850, Pierre arrived, bitter and broke, demanding a share of Louis's growing trade. His work was careless, his temper hot, their old rift widened by years apart. Clémence mediated, her calm voice a balm, though Pierre's pride refused to bend. In 1853, Napoleon III's court summoned Louis, Empress Eugénie seeking a packer for her wardrobe. He crafted boxes that cradled her gowns through storms, her favor opening doors to the elite. Orders poured in, from dukes to diplomats, the garret buckling under tools and dreams. In 1854, Louis wed Clémence, their union a fortress of love and ambition. They leased 4 Rue Neuve des Capucines, a workshop near Place Vendôme, its sign bold and clear. Securely packs the most fragile objects, specializing in packing fashions, it declared. With 3 craftsmen, Louis forged trunks that would redefine luxury, Clémence's patterns their flourish. From Anche's hills to Paris's heart, Louis stood poised, his hands ready to reshape the world. In 1854, Paris stood at the precipice of a grand metamorphosis, a city alive with the clamor of reinvention. Barren houses, ambitious urban renewal, carved wide boulevards through the medieval tangle, their fresh cobblestones gleaming under the hooves of horses and the wheels of innovation. Gas lamps, newly installed, bathed the evenings in a golden haze, illuminating a world where the old aristocracy mingled uneasily with the rising bourgeoisie. The Industrial Revolution pulsed through the city, factories churned, their smokestacks piercing the sky, while the whistle of steam locomotives heralded a shrinking globe. Railways unfurled across the continent like threads of iron stitching distant capitals together. Steamships, their engines roaring with imperial might, conquered the seas, ferrying goods, people, and dreams to every corner of the earth. Yet amid this torrent of progress, one artifact lagged stubbornly behind: luggage. The domed trunks of yesteryear, bulky, leather-clad relics, groaned under their own weight, ill-suited to the demands of modern travel. Their curved lids, once a practical shield against rain-soaked horseback journeys, now mocked the efficiency of train cars and ship decks. Louis Vuitton, at 33, stood in his modest workshop at 4 Rue Neuve des Capucines, his keen eyes dissecting this flaw. A craftsman honed by years on the road and a visionary sparked by the age's possibilities, he saw not just a problem, but an opportunity. Beside him stood Clémence, his wife and confidant, her deft hands and astute insights as vital as his own. Together, they watched travelers at the Gare du Nord, trunks toppling from overloaded carriages, leather splitting under strain. The old designs could not stack. Their heft exhausted porters, their materials succumbed to damp and wear. Louis dreamed of a trunk reborn, flat-topped, lightweight, enduring, crafted for a world in motion. He turned to poplar wood, its strength subtle yet resilient, and canvas, a fabric humble yet versatile. Clémence, drawing from her seamstress roots, proposed waxing the canvas to defy the elements. In the courtyard of her home, they tested her idea, draping scraps over buckets as a spring rain fell. Water beaded and rolled off the waxed surface, a quiet victory that set their course. By 1856, Louis's workbench overflowed with sketches, each line a step toward revolution. He abandoned the domed lid entirely, opting for a flat top braced with metal slats for stability. The poplar became a skeleton, sturdy at featherlight. The canvas, a skin that could breathe and endure. Clémence's needle danced across the fabric, her stitches a testament to precision and care. In 1858, after tireless refinement, the train and trunk emerged, a gray, unpretentious marvel. Travelers at the bustling stations of Paris gasped as porters stacked them with ease, their flat tops a perfect fit for the modern age. Weighing less than their leather forebears, they shrugged off rain and resisted the scars of travel. Word spread like wildfire, orders pouring in from shopkeepers, aristocrats, and adventurers alike. Empress Eugénie, Louis's most illustrious ally, ordered 50 trunks adorned with her imperial insignia. At Versailles, her courtiers flaunted them, turning the Trianon into a status symbol overnight. The narrow street outside the workshop choked with carriages, their drivers cursing the endless wait. The atelier, once a haven of quiet creation, buzzed with urgency, its space too small for the clamor of success. Louis recruited 10 apprentices, schooling them in the art of his craft. Every cut, every stitch held to his exacting measure. He inspected each trunk himself, his calloused fingers probing seams for the slightest flaw. Yet success bred imitators. Crude counterfeits surfaced in Lyon's shadowy markets, their makers aping his design. Fury lit Louis's eyes. He branded his canvas with El Vuitton, a defiant stamp of origin. Clémence, with her steady hand on the business, tracked every sale in meticulous ledgers, her quill a shield against chaos. In 1857, their son Georges entered the world, his wails a counterpoint to the workshop's rhythm. Louis carved him a tiny trunk, its lock a miniature masterpiece, a promise of the future. Georges crawled among curls of poplar shavings, his giggles softening the grind of labor. By 1859, the Rue Neuve des Capucines workshop buckled under demand, its walls straining like an overpacked trunk. Louis looked beyond Paris to Asnières, a tranquil village cradled by the Seine, its fields ripe for ambition. There, he raised a new atelier of brick and glass, its vast windows flooding the space with light. 40 artisans, Paris's finest, joined his ranks, their tools striking a chorus of creation. The Seine delivered timber and canvas, its current a lifeline to the growing empire. Asnières became a refuge, its air rich with the tang of wax and the musk of freshly cut wood. Clémence, inspired by her mother's needlework, sketched a floral motif for the canvas, a delicate bloom amid the utilitarian gray. Louis crafted a trunk with her design for Eugénie, who displayed it with pride at court. In 1860, a missive arrived from Egypt's Khedive Ismail, a modernizer dreaming of a westernized Cairo. He sought trunks for his globe-trotting entourage, their roots winding through deserts and ports. Louis reinforced the frames with extra bracing, the canvas now a bulwark against sand and sun. Explorers, too, beat a path to Asnières, their expeditions a proving ground for his ingenuity. Pierre Savorgnan de Brazza, an intrepid Italian bound for the Congo, arrived with a gleam in his eye. Louis devised a trunk bed, a folding camp cot of zinc and canvas, compact yet robust. Months later, a letter from Brazza, penned in the African interior, praised its resilience. Louis framed it above his desk. The workshop's pace quickened, its output doubling as tails of the trunk spread. In 1862, a Russian duke commissioned a set for a Siberian trek, demanding fur-lined interiors. Louis obliged, layering the trunks with pelts, their warmth a match for the frozen steppes. Back in Paris, a scandal erupted when a rival craftsman claimed Louis stole his ideas. Louis faced him in court, sketches and witnesses in hand, and won. A triumph of truth over envy. In 1865, tension flared closer to home as Pierre, Louis' estranged brother, reappeared. Years earlier, Pierre's shoddy work had driven clients away. Now he demanded a stake in the spoils. Louis' refusal was steel-clad, his voice calm but unyielding, widening the family breach. Clémence penned a heartfelt plea to Pierre, her words a bridge untraveled. Georges, now 8, watched the rift unfold, his small hands carving a rough trunk to prove his worth. Louis softened at the sight, tousling the boy's hair, a rare moment of peace. In 1867, the Exposition Universelle dazzled Paris, a global stage for invention. Louis' Trianon trunks shone amid the pomp, their simplicity outshining gilded competitors. Orders flooded from St. Petersburg to San Francisco, the world's elite clamoring for his craft. Counterfeits surged anew, their makers emboldened by his fame. Louis countered with a striped canvas, red and beige bands that mocked imitation. His locks too evolved. He forged a tumbler system, its complexity a thief's nightmare. Clémence tested each one, her patience unraveling shoddy prototypes until perfection emerged. By 1869, Agnières thrummed with 60 artisans, their work a symphony of progress. The workshop's pulse mirrored the era's own, a relentless march forward. Yet Louis' body began to betray him, decades of toil etching lines of fatigue into his frame. A cough rattled his chest as he paced the floors, his shadow long against the walls. Clémence stepped into the breach, her quiet resolve steadying the artisans, her fears locked behind a smile. Georges, now a lanky youth, shadowed his father, absorbing every lesson with wide-eyed hunger. In 1870, a storm gathered on the horizon as Prussia's armies massed, their boots thudding toward France. The Franco-Prussian War cast a pall over Paris, its threat coiling around Louis' empire. His trunks, emblems of a world unbound, now faced a nation on the brink. In Asnieres, the hammers fell silent as news of mobilization spread. Louis stood by the Seine, gazing at the water's restless flow, his legacy teetering between triumph and trial. In the summer of 1870, a storm of steel and fire swept across France, its roar shaking the foundations of Paris. The Franco-Prussian War, ignited by imperial ambitions, plunged the nation into chaos, its cannons thundering beyond the city's gates. Louis Vuitton, now 49, stood at the threshold of his Agnières workshop, his graying hair catching the ash-laden wind. The atelier, a sanctuary of craftsmanship, had grown into a beacon of innovation, its Trianon trunks a symbol of a world in motion. Yet war cared little for dreams, and as Prussian armies encircled Paris, the city braced for siege. Louis watched as neighbors shuttered their homes, their faces etched with fear, their carts piled with what little they could carry. Clémence, his steadfast wife, clutched their son Georges, now 13, her eyes scanning the horizon for signs of hope. The workshop, once alive with the rhythm of hammers and the scent of waxed canvas, stood eerily silent. Louis' artisans, loyal but fearful, scattered, some to join the fight, others to flee with their families. In September, as the siege tightened, looters descended on Agnières like wolves on a wounded stag. They smashed benches, tore canvas from racks, and set fire to half-finished trunks, their flames licking the night sky. Louis, barricaded in the family's loft above the workshop, held Clémence close, his heart heavy with loss. Georges, wide-eyed and trembling, pressed his face to the window, watching the glow of destruction. The atelier, a monument to years of toil, was reduced to smoldering ruins, its tools stolen or burned. Clémence salvaged a single Trianon trunk, its gray canvas scorched but intact, a relic of their defiance. Louis, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest, vowed to rebuild, his will as unyielding as the poplar he shaped. The family fled to central Paris, seeking refuge in a cousin's cramped attic near the Palais Royal. There, amid the siege's hunger and cold, Louis planned his return, sketching designs by candlelight. Pierre, his estranged brother, now a tanner in Lyon, sent no aid. Their rift a wound that war only deepened. Clémence, ever the anchor, rationed their meager supplies, her hands sewing patches onto Georges' worn coat. Georges, though young, carried a quiet resolve, helping his father carry water from the Seine's muddy banks. The siege dragged through winter, Paris starving under Prussian guns, its people reduced to eating rats. Louis, haunted by the loss of his workshop, found solace in teaching Georges the craft. He showed him how to carve a simple box from scavenged wood, their fingers numb in the attic's chill. Every piece must tell a story, Louis said, his voice a low rumble, passing on his mother's wisdom. In 1871, as peace crept back, Paris emerged battered but unbroken, its spirit scarred yet defiant. Louis returned to Asnières, his boots crunching over ash and debris, the workshop a skeleton of its former self. Clémence, carrying the salvage trunk, stood beside him, her eyes fierce with determination. Georges, now taller and leaner, rolled up his sleeves, ready to clear the rubble with his bare hands. The family worked tirelessly, salvaging what they could. Bent nails, charred slats, scraps of canvas. Louis' artisans trickled back, their loyalty a spark in the darkness, their hammers soon ringing anew. He chose a bold new home for his empire, leasing forward in Rue Scribe, near the Jockey Club's opulent halls. The rent was a gamble, its cost steep as the Jura's peaks, but Louis saw it as a declaration of rebirth. The new workshop, with polished oak floors and tall windows, gleamed under Paris's reborn sun. A sign hung above the door. Louis Vuitton, Malatier, English spoken. The phrase, a nod to British travelers, drew lords and ladies from London's fog-shrouded streets. Rue Scribe became a pilgrimage site, its atelier a stage for Louis' vision. Yet the war had left scars, not just on Paris, but on the Vuitton family. Clémence, worn by months of scarcity, hid her fatigue behind a tireless work ethic. She managed the artisans, her voice calm but firm, ensuring every trunk met Louis' standards. Georges, now a teenager, chafed under the weight of expectation, his hands eager but unpolished. He carved a small chest, its seams uneven, and presented it to Louis with a mix of pride and fear. Louis, softening, placed it on a shelf, a silent promise that Georges would one day shine. The Trianon canvas, though beloved, faced a growing plague of counterfeits. Chaux de Vuitton flooded markets from Marseille to Brussels, their makers profiting on his name. In 1872, a rival, Etienne Goyard, taunted Louis at a Paris trade fair, claiming superiority. Goyard's domed trunks, ornate but impractical, were the darling of traditionalists. Louis, undaunted, challenged him to a public test at the Gare de l'Est. Before a crowd of travelers, porters stacked Louis' Trianon trunks 10 high, steady as stone. Goyard's, wobbling at 3, collapsed in a heap, drawing gasps and laughter. The victory cemented Louis' reputation, but counterfeits only grew bolder. In 1876, he struck back with a new canvas, Rayé, its maroon and beige stripes, a vivid rebuke. The pattern, hand-painted with care, was unmistakable, a banner of authenticity. Orders surged, from Parisian bankers to Russian dukes, each craving the Vuitton mark. Clémence, ever inventive, suggested a hidden pocket for valuables, a feature Louis perfected. In 1878, a mysterious client, a veiled countess, commissioned a trunk with a secret compartment. Louis crafted it in secrecy, its false bottom a marvel, earning whispers of his genius. The countess, rumored to be a spy, vanished, but her trunk became a legend in Paris salons. By 1880, Georges, now 23, joined the business full-time, his mind sharp with ideas. He clashed with Louis over modernization, urging faster production to meet demand. Louis, rooted in craftsmanship, resisted, fearing quality would suffer. Clémence mediated, her wisdom a bridge between father and son, her voice soothing their tempers. In 1885, Georges sailed to London, opening the first Louis Vuitton store at 289 Oxford Street. The move was a gamble, but Georges' charm won over British nobles, their orders a torrent. In 1886, a commission from Abdulhamid II, the Ottoman Sultan, tested Louis' skill. He crafted a Rayé trunk with drawers, its elegance fit for a ruler's odysseys. The Sultan's envoy, awestruck, gifted Louis a jeweled dagger, now displayed in Agnières. Counterfeits persisted, their makers growing cunning, their fakes nearly convincing. In 1888, Louis unveiled the damier canvas, its black and tan checks a bold new shield. Each trunk bore Marquel Vuitton déposé, a declaration of his unyielding claim. The damier, intricate yet timeless, became a hallmark, its pattern a fortress against fraud. In 1889, the London store moved to 454 The Strand opposite Charing Cross Station. Its prime location ensured every traveler saw the Vuitton name, a beacon of prestige. Louis's health, battered by years of toil, faltered, his cough a constant companion. He leaned on Georges, whose business acumen now rivaled his father's craft. In 1890, Georges introduced the 5-tumbler lock, a mechanism so secure it baffled thieves. He challenged Harry Houdini to escape a trunk fitted with it. The magician wisely declined. The lock, a triumph of engineering, became a Vuitton signature, still used today. By 1891, Louis' strength waned, his steps slower, his hands trembling over canvas. Clémence, now the atelier's heart, managed artisans and orders, her resolve unshaken. Georges, torn between duty and ambition, dreamed of global stores, his father's legacy away. On February 27, 1892, Louis Vuitton died at 70, his breath fading in Agnières. The atelier fell silent, its artisans weeping for the man who'd shaped their craft. Clémence, stoic, held Georges close, their grief a shared vow to carry on. Georges, now 35, took the helm, his father's tools a mantle of responsibility. In 1896, he unveiled the monogram canvas, LV initials, quatrefoils, and flowers, a tribute to Louis. Patented worldwide, it shielded the brand from fakes, its beauty a timeless emblem. The saga of trials and triumphs, from war's ashes to global acclaim, forged an empire. Louis' vision born in Angers lived on, its canvas a map of journeys yet to come. On a cold morning in February 1892, the Asnières workshop stood silent, its usual hum of hammers stilled by a profound loss. Louis Vuitton, the visionary who had reshaped travel with his flat-top trunks, drew his final breath in the family home above the atelier. His hands, once deft at carving poplar and stitching canvas, lay still, their work complete. Clémence, his wife of nearly 4 decades, held his hand, her face a mask of stoic sorrow, her heart a fortress against grief. Georges, their son, stood at the foot of the bed, his broad shoulders squared but his eyes glistening with unshed tears. At 35, he was no longer the boy who played among wood shavings. He was the heir to a legacy that spanned continents. The artisans who had honed their craft under Louis' exacting gaze gathered in the courtyard, their caps clutched in calloused hands. Word of Louis' passing rippled through Paris, reaching the salons of the elite and the docks of distant ports. Tributes poured in, from Empress Eugénie, whose court had flaunted his trunks, to explorers like Pierre Savourignan de Brazza, whose Congo treks had tested their strength. Clémence, though shattered, knew the workshop's pulse must not falter. She turned to Georges, her voice steady despite the weight of loss, and placed a hand on his arm. "Your father built this with his hands," she said, "but you will carry it with your heart." Georges nodded, his jaw tight, determination burning through his grief like a flame through fog. He had grown up in the atelier's shadow, learning to carve and stitch before he could read. Now, the mantle was his, a burden as heavy as the poplar frames his father had shaped. The late 19th century was a crucible of change, with steamships and railways knitting the world closer and empires vying for dominance. Georges understood that to honor Louis' vision, he must not merely preserve but expand, forging a brand that would outlive them all. Yet a shadow loomed over the empire, counterfeits, those insidious mimics that had plagued Louis' final years. The Rayé and Damier canvases, bold as they were, had failed to stem the tide of fakes flooding markets from Marseille to Milan. Georges, with his father's stubbornness and a flair for artistry, vowed to create a design that no forger could match. In 1895, he retreated to his study, sketches sprawling across his desk like a battlefield of ideas. He drew inspiration from Japanese Mon patterns, their geometric elegance a nod to the East's rising influence. Clemence, ever his confidant, suggested weaving in symbols of permanence, stars, flowers, a mark of lineage. By 1896, after months of trial and error, Georges unveiled the monogram canvas. Its interlocking LV initials, quatrefoils, and floral motifs were a masterpiece of design and defense. The pattern, intricate yet timeless, was a shield against the counterfeit plague. Clients from Paris to St. Petersburg clamored for trunks clad in its new canvas. Their orders a deluge. The monogram became more than a fabric. It was a banner, a declaration of luxury that echoed Louis's genius. Georges, emboldened, turned his sights beyond France, dreaming of stores in every great city. In 1897, he sailed to New York, a city pulsing with ambition, its skyline jagged with new wealth. He opened a store at 75th Avenue, its windows gleaming with monogram trunks. American tycoons from Vanderbilt to Rockefeller filled their mansions with Vuitton's creations, yet success bred rivalry. And a New York craftsman, Silas Pratt, accused Georges of stealing his designs. Georges faced him in a public challenge, stacking monogram trunks against Pratt's leather cases. Pratt's collapsed under weight, while Vuitton stood firm. The crowd's cheers, a victory cry. Back in Paris, Clemence managed the Asnières workshop, her presence a steady hand amid growth. She trained artisans, her eye as sharp as Louis', ensuring no seam fell short of perfection. Georges, though brilliant, was restless, his ambition sometimes outpacing his patience. He clashed with Clemence over hiring, her caution a brake on his haste to expand. "You cannot rush art," she told him, her voice soft but ironclad, echoing Louis' mantra. In 1901, Georges introduced the steamer bag, a soft-sided marvel designed to slip inside trunks. Its canvas, lightweight and durable, was perfect for laundry or overnight jaunts, a nod to the era's quickening pace. The bag's success spurred new designs, each bearing the monogram's proud mark. In 1905, fictional scandal rocked the atelier when a disgruntled artisan, Marcel, sold monogram patterns to a rival. Marcel, passed over for promotion, had slipped sketches to a Lyon forger, hoping to ruin Georges. Clemence uncovered the betrayal, her ledgers revealing missing supplies traced to Marcel's hands. Georges confronted him in the workshop, his voice thunderous, and Marcel fled, disgraced. The incident, hushed to protect the brand, taught Georges to guard his designs like a fortress. By 1910, the Vuitton name adorned stores in London, Buenos Aires, and Bombay, each a bastion of elegance. In 1914, Georges opened the grandest yet on the Champs-Élysées, a palace of luxury that dwarfed all rivals. Its Art Deco facade, with monogram motifs carved in stone, drew crowds from across Paris. The store's opening was marred by a fictional sabotage. A rival, Henri Delaunay, bribed a porter to spill ink on display trunks. Georges, quick-witted, turned the mishap into a spectacle, unveiling pristine replacements to applause. World War I erupted that century, casting a pall over Europe's glittering capitals. The war halted leisure travel, and luxury goods became a distant priority. Georges adapted, redirecting Asnières to craft trunks for military officers and medical supplies. A fictional anecdote tells of a trunk designed for a French general, its secret compartment hiding battle plans. The general's gratitude, sealed with a medal, hung in Georges' office, a quiet badge of honor. After the war, the Roaring Twenties brought a surge in travel and wealth, reviving Vuitton's fortunes. In 1924, Georges introduced the Kipal, a duffel bag that blended utility with style, perfect for motor cars and early planes. Its success led to the Speedy in 1930, a compact version that caught the eye of stars like Audrey Hepburn. Coco Chanel, a family friend, collaborated on a bespoke handbag, the Alma, launched in 1934. Her influence, sharp and modern, pushed Vuitton toward fashion, a shift Georges embraced. Yet family tensions simmered as Georges' cousin, Louis Charles, challenged his leadership. Louis Charles, a descendant of Pierre, believed the family legacy was his by right. In a heated 1925 meeting, he accused George was eluding Louis' vision with frivolous bags. Clemence, now aging but fierce, silenced him, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. Louis built for the future, she said, and Georges carries it forward. Louis Charles left, vowing to start a rival firm, but his venture fizzled, a footnote to Vuitton's rise. In 1936, Georges' health failed, and he passed away, leaving the company to his son Gaston Louis. Gaston Louis, a collector of rare books and a lover of art, brought a new vision to the brand. His window displays, miniature theaters of monogram and leather, turned stores into spectacles. World War II descended in 1939, and Asnières faced new trials under Nazi occupation. Gaston Louis, navigating a treacherous path, hid monogram canvas and archives in a secret cellar. A fictional tale tells of a daring night when he smuggled materials past German patrols, saving the atelier. He kept production alive, crafting bags for locals to preserve jobs, his loyalty a quiet resistance. After liberation, Vuitton emerged stronger, its reputation untarnished. In 1959, Gaston Louis revolutionized luggage with soft-sided canvas, lighter and more flexible than trunks. The Noe bucket bag, born in 1932, gained new life in vibrant colors, a hit with the jet set. The 1960s saw stores open in Tokyo and Hong Kong, Japan's love for Vuitton sparking a cultural craze. In 1970, Gaston Louis' death passed the torch to his son-in-law, Henri Racamier. Racamier, a shrewd businessman, saw Vuitton's potential as a global titan. In 1984, he took the company public, its shares a bet on luxury's enduring allure. The 1980s brought corporate intrigue as Bernard Arnault, a cunning financier, eyed Vuitton's crown. In 1987, Racamier orchestrated a merger with Moet Hennessy, birthing LVMH, a luxury colossus. But Arnault, with a predator's instinct, outmaneuvered him in a boardroom coup. By 1989, Arnault seized control, ousting Racamier in a clash that echoed across Paris. Under Arnault, Vuitton's empire grew. With over 100 stores worldwide by 1987, the monogram, now a century old, adorned bags, shoes, and dreams, its pattern a global emblem. From Louis' first trunk to Arnault's reign, the Vuitton legacy stood as a testament to vision and valor. In the twilight of 1987, as the world stood on the cusp of a digital dawn, Paris shimmered with the promise of reinvention. The fashion industry, once a cloistered realm of European aristocracy, was awakening to the siren call of global markets. Louis Vuitton, a name synonymous with travel's golden age, faced a pivotal moment in its storied history. The merger with Moet Hennessy, a union of champagne, cognac, and canvas, birthed LVMH, a colossus poised to redefine luxury. At its helm stood Bernard Arnault, a financier whose ambition burned brighter than the gaslights of old Paris. Arnault, with the precision of a master strategist, saw Louis Vuitton as the jewel in his crown, a brand to anchor his empire. His rise was not without blood. In 1989, he ousted Henri Racamier, the Vuitton heir who had orchestrated the merger. The boardroom battle, a clash of titans, echoed through the financial halls of Paris, leaving Arnault as LVMH's unchallenged sovereign. For Louis Vuitton, this marked the dawn of a new era, one where heritage would meet audacity and tradition would dance with innovation. Arnault's vision was clear. The brand must transcend its roots as a malatier, becoming a beacon of high fashion. He poured resources into expanding product lines, venturing beyond trunks into ready-to-wear, accessories, and more. Yet to realize this dream, he needed a creative alchemist, someone to weave the monogram into the fabric of modernity. In 1997, that alchemist arrived, Marc Jacobs, an American designer with a penchant for rebellion and a flair for the avant-garde. Jacobs, his hair tousled and his arms inked with tattoos, was an unlikely steward for a house steeped in tradition. Yet Arnault saw in him a spark. a vision to catapult Louis Vuitton into the fashion stratosphere. On a crisp autumn day, Jacobs stepped into the Asnières workshop, where artisans bent over benches, their hands moving with the grace of generations. The air was thick with a scent of leather and wax, a living testament to Louis Vuitton's legacy. Jacobs, awestruck, ran his fingers over a monogram trunk, its canvas whispering tales of journeys past. He spent days with the craftsmen, learning the secrets of their trade, from the precise angle of a stitch to the alchemy of waterproofing. In the Paris archives, he pored over Louis' sketches, each line a thread connecting past to present. His mind raced with possibilities, how to honor this heritage while shattering its boundaries. For his debut in 1998, Jacobs unveiled a collection that stunned the fashion world. Models strode down a runway clad in monogram denim jackets, leather skirts, and tailored coats, their silhouettes blending streetwise grit with haute couture elegance. The press was divided. Purists decried the audacity, whispering of betrayal to Louis' vision. But the public roared with approval, snapping up the pieces faster than boutiques could stock them. Sales soared, and Louis Vuitton was no longer just a luggage brand. It was a fashion titan. Jacobs' genius lay in his ability to reimagine the monogram, making it a canvas for art and rebellion. In 2001, he partnered with Steven Sprouse, whose neon graffiti scrawled across the monogram in a riot of color. The collection sold out in days. Its bold designs a clarion call to a new generation of luxury lovers. 2 years later, in 2003, Jacobs collaborated with Takashi Murakami, a Japanese artist whose vibrant, anime-inspired aesthetic captivated the world. The multicolor monogram splashed with 33 hues against white or black canvas was a revelation. The cherry blossom bag, with its smiling flowers and cherries, became an instant icon, spotted on the arms of celebrities from Paris to Tokyo. These collaborations were not mere marketing. They were cultural dialogues, blending East and West, art and commerce. A fictional anecdote tells of Jacobs and Murakami sketching over sake in a Tokyo studio, their laughter mingling as they dreamed up the cherry blossoms. The success of these partnerships cemented Louis Vuitton's place at the intersection of fashion and art. In 2004, a fictional scandal shook the atelier when a rival designer, Claude Lefebvre, stole monogram sketches from a disgruntled employee. Lefebvre's knockoffs flooded Parisian markets, their shoddy stitching in mockery of Vuitton's craft. Jacobs, furious, led a sting operation with Arnault's backing, exposing Lefebvre's scheme in a dramatic raid. The victory, though costly, reinforced Vuitton's resolve to protect its legacy. Under Jacobs, the brand expanded into jewelry, watches, and fragrances, each bearing the monogram's timeless mark. The 2007 launch of the Neverfull tote, with its cavernous interior and elegant design, became a bestseller, beloved for its versatility. Runway shows, now global spectacles, drew stars like Madonna and Kanye West, their presence amplifying Vuitton's allure. By 2013, when Jacobs stepped down, he had transformed Louis Vuitton into a fashion powerhouse, his legacy etched in every monogram stitch. Arnault, ever the strategist, turned his gaze to new horizons, opening flagship stores in cities from Tokyo to Dubai. In 1978, the Ginza store in Tokyo had marked Vuitton's first foray outside Europe, its monogram facade a beacon in Japan's fashion capital. By 1992, a store in Shanghai's Peninsula Hotel signaled China's rise as a luxury market, its opening a glittering affair. Each boutique was a masterpiece, its architecture blending French elegance with local flair. In 2005, the Champs-Élysées flagship was reborn, its interior a labyrinth of light and shadow, drawing pilgrims to its monogram altars. Counterfeits, a persistent scourge, multiplied as Vuitton's fame grew. Arnault waged a relentless war, deploying legal teams and investigators to seize fakes from Bangkok to New York. In 2013, Nicolas Ghesquière succeeded Jacobs, his futuristic designs pushing Vuitton into new realms. Ghesquière's collections, with their sci-fi silhouettes and intricate textures, captivated critics, blending heritage with innovation. In 2018, Virgil Abloh's appointment as menswear director marked a cultural earthquake. Ablo, a polymath who fused streetwear with high fashion, was the first African American to lead a Vuitton line. His debut show in 2019, set against a rainbow runway at the Palais Royal, was a celebration of diversity. Models of all backgrounds wore translucent keypaws and holographic jackets. Their outfits a manifesto of inclusion. Ablo's Ghanaian heritage shown in designs like the Kente-inspired monogram, a nod to his roots. A fictional tale tells of Ablo sketching late at night in Asnieres. Inspired by an artisan story of Louis's first trunk, his tenure, tragically cut short by cancer in 2021, left an indelible mark, his vision carried forward by his team. The 2020s brought new challenges as the COVID-19 pandemic shuttered stores and halted travel. Vuitton pivoted to virtual runways, streaming shows from Paris to millions online. In 2021, Louis the Game, a mobile app celebrating the brand's 200th anniversary, blended storytelling with digital play. Sustainability became a cornerstone, with Vuitton pledging carbon neutrality by 2025. Recycled materials from plastic to leather wove into collections, and partnerships with environmental groups grew. In 2023, Pharrell Williams took over menswear, his eclectic style infusing Vuitton with music and culture. His debut show, set on Paris's Pont Neuf, featured monogram suits with vibrant prints, a nod to his hip-hop roots. In 2025, Vuitton launched La Beauté Louis Vuitton, a cosmetic line led by Pat McGrath, with 55 lipsticks and bold palettes. The collection, 4 years in the making, was unveiled at a star-studded gala, cementing Vuitton's beauty ambitions. Asnieres, still the heart of special orders, employed 170 artisans, their hands preserving Louis' techniques. 17 global workshops from France to California, hummed with precision, crafting for a world that never stopped moving. Controversies like a 2024 Barcelona protest over labor practices tested Vuitton's resolve, but Arnault's leadership held firm. By 2025, Louis Vuitton's valuation soared to $124.8 billion, its monogram a global emblem of elegance. From Louis's first trunk to a 200th anniversary empire, the Saga was a tapestry of vision, art, and resilience. The brand stood as travel's poet, luxury's king, and history's muse. Its future as boundless as its past. Love the Louis Vuitton saga. From a jeweler boy's dream to a $124.8 billion empire, this epic of grit and glory captivated your heart. If Louis' journey inspired you, smash that like button to honor his legacy. Want more tales of triumph and secrets? Subscribe now and join our journey for epic stories. Your support fuels the saga. Let's keep the adventure alive.